minutes past 8. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're coming to you live from Yenagoa, where the maiden edition of the Bayelsa State Investment and Economic Forum is holding. Well, now we're joined by the Director General, Bayelsa State Tourism Development Agency, Mrs. Ebizi Brown. Morning. Thank you for coming today. Well, talking about tourism, I mean, yes, you know, there will be states that will pop up. But yes, Bayelsa also trying to pop up on the radar. How are you approaching this?
Well, we started off with several things that are, side by side. One of which we decided that, yes, Bayelsa was quite unknown when it came to the tourism industry. So one of the best ways to bring people in to see what we have was to ensure that we could put together international standard entertainment events which would encourage people to come into Bayelsa. And a whole lot of that has happened over the last couple of years. And I think we've actually had a lot of success in having people come to know so much more about Bayelsa. And we incorporate that with getting people to visit our sites, get to know a little bit about the rural Bayelsa and the beautiful things that we have. For instance, last year when we had the MBJN delegates in Bayelsa, we took them all the way to Brass, where we have the White Man's Grave, which is like 2 hours by boat outside of Yenagoa. And they also visited the first oil well Bayelsa ever had, Oloibiri. Then, so that at least, we could have them as well go outside and be good ambassadors of Bayelsa. We also have a lot of local cultural festivals that are held between one community and another. We got them to visit some of those sites, see there's a great Lake Effie fishing festival that holds once every 5 years, very similar to the Argungu Fishing Festival. We got them to visit those sites, row on the water. There's a lot of folklore about it, where they say the crocodiles don't bite and all of that. So they had a first-hand opportunity to see all of that. We also last year had, of course, we have the AMA as well, which I think has also done a lot for Bayelsa. Someone just this year was saying that in Cannes, they had people crying, "Oh, I want to go to Yenagoa." Even those who didn't know where Yenagoa was, were wanting to come. So on that leg, I think we achieved a whole lot by having done that.
I'm tempted to ask, like a tourist, how true is that about the crocodiles?
Quite true from what they say, but I don't know. I haven't tried it.
Okay, we're talking about sites, and places in Bayelsa which you have tried to sell to the world. And what stands out if you say Bayelsa is a tourist destination? What would you be saying to someone who is outside of Bayelsa that would interest him or her to come visit Bayelsa?
Yes, I think one of the greatest selling points we have is our natural beauty, because I think Bayelsa is very scenic. It's a state that has a large portion of waters all around the state, and apart from that, so we have the natural ecotourism sites, which is second to none, really. You go from one terrain to the other, and what you see is really just different. And then we have the heritage sites, the slave tunnel. We have the lighthouse that is well over a century old in Akasa. You have the graves of the white men from the Akasa raid and all that. So I think that particularly for people who probably have their grandfathers or great-grandfathers buried on those soils, it does mean a lot. And on my last visit to Akasa, I actually heard one of them saying they've actually had visits like that, from Americans, maybe who wanted to set their foot on the soil where probably their great-grandfathers walked. We've also had inquiries from people like that wanting to come as well, wanting for us to set up tours and all of that, which we're still working on.
Tours. I think what comes to mind is what the governor said yesterday, talking about human capital development. Now, for Bayelsans that would want to go into guides, as tourist guides, is your department looking into that to see if they can actually have proper training, and so that when tourists come, you can easily know that you have good hands that can take them around places and also explain the history and stories behind such sites?
Yes, definitely. We have a few on board already, but I'm not sure if you're aware of the fact that we just started, an Institute of Tourism and Hospitality was just opened. So we're going to be training them, not just in the area of tourist guides, but that will be one of the areas they will be trained, so that definitely our own people will be the ones employed in all these industries. And, that way, there'll be a lot of youth empowerment from those areas. But also even in the international standard events that we hold, one of the beautiful things about it is a lot of resource persons used are local. And I think it is actually developing them in a new kind of skill set. And I think that's really, really good for them as well.
One of the areas one would also like or would like to see work being done is in the area of education and literature being developed by Bayelsa. Because you know that it's a relatively young state compared to many other states, so maybe not a lot is known. Are you also doing anything in the area of dissemination of information about, what Bayelsa holds, at least in terms of arts and culture?
Yes, you're right. We do have certain manuals we put together. We would be working on more as the time goes on, because we are very aware of the fact that not much is known about our history and our culture, and Bayelsa does have a very, very rich culture. In fact, I believe that is one of the richest cultures that Nigeria has. Like I usually say, if a Bayelsan troupe went anywhere to display, any of their cultural dances or masquerades or stuff, and you had masquerades or cultural dances from many other parts of Nigeria, I think, we would come out tops, because it's really colorful and creative.
Okay, so you're looking at literature, but are you also looking at disseminating information locally? Possibly through hotels, because one of the areas where, people will naturally pick up information and possibly show interest in some of those sites that are not even located within Yenagua, which is oftentimes where most, business people stop, is through the hotels.
Outside of Yenagua, you mean?
No, in Yenagua.
In Yenagua, yes. We are working very closely with the hotels to ensure that can be done. And like I said, we have certain manuals that have been produced already. We will still be working on so much more to ensure exactly what you just.
Do you have a cultural arts and center now?
Yes, we do. So one of the best in Nigeria.
Interesting. So if you want to pick up literature concerning Bayelsa, it's one of the areas that one can go to, right?
Yes, they should have some. We should have some as well.
Okay. Well, what would you say, because, transporting to Bayelsa continues to pose a challenge. We understand that towards the end of next year, hopefully, that will be a thing of the past, and people will be able to access the state, a lot more directly, and maybe, who knows, tourism will pick up the way you would want it to. But in the meantime, what are you doing in that particular area?
For transporting to Bayelsa, you see, the thing about the tourism industry is that a large chunk of it has to be private sector driven. What government can do is to encourage, to create the enabling environment in order for the private sector to take advantage of the environment that has been created. And I think government is actively, encouraging that. A lot of policies have been put in place to assist that, because we wouldn't actually, as government, be able to go into those the aspect of actually providing transport and all of that. We could give support. I know that internally, government has done a lot, to supporting the PPP initiative, for there to be more taxis in town, more taxis flying intercity and all of that, but we would really want more of the private sector to get more involved in it. We're also doing more to encourage people to actually want to come to Bayelsa, because in all these activities going on, what happens is you find more and more people coming into Bayelsa for one event or the other.
How much interest would you say the private sector has shown in helping develop tourism in Bayelsa?
Quite a bit so far, but we're definitely hoping to achieve more after this fall.
Is it lucrative? Because that's one of the things that will attract investment.
I would say yes, because I mean, one of the areas where you find a lot of Bayelsans haven't invested is in the area of hotels. There are a lot of hotels within Bayelsa. What we are trying to do is to work with them to ensure that it's standardized. But you do have, it is one area where I think Bayelsans have actually invested tremendously.